The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "The only constant in life is change." He lived 25 centuries ago and, a lot's changed since then, so he's probably right. To warm up, think about that word, change. What comes to mind? Do you associate it with something positive, something negative, or neither? Why? Western Europe had remained largely unchanged for nearly 1,000 years. The medieval era was dominated by the Catholic Church, with hereditary monarchs ruling small kingdoms. Sure, it could be chaotic. You had the Crusades, the Black Death, and you never knew when a neighboring kingdom might invade. And yeah, you were most likely poor despite working hard. But societal organization, how rulership was decided, how to worship, what job you'd have, were pretty much constants in life. And then came the Protestant Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, and the Enlightenment, and everything changed, in the grand scheme of history, really fast. If you lived in Western Europe at the time, would you think change was good? If you were a member of France's bourgeoisie, maybe you would. However, if you were a relative of one of the hundreds of thousands of French troops that lost their lives in the Napoleonic Wars, probably not. In today's lesson, we'll see how Europe reacted to the changes that led to the rise of Napoleon, who had just finished leaving a swath of destruction on the continent. Our guiding questions today are, what was the Congress of Vienna and how did it plan to stabilize Europe? How did the Congress of Vienna achieve each of its four main goals? What was the long-term impact of the Congress of Vienna? And our big picture question is, how do people react differently to widespread changes in thinking or action? Napoleon had spent the previous 2 decades spearheading a campaign to establish French dominance on the European continent and beyond, resulting in rapidly shifting borders and alliances on the continent. In 1814 and 1815, delegates from 5 European powers, Austria, Britain, France, Prussia, and Russia, met in Vienna, Austria. They formed the Congress of Vienna, hoping to restore order to Europe. The most influential representative at the Congress was Clemens von Metternich, Foreign Minister of Austria. He was a traditional conservative who supported the old guard of European monarchical rule. He believed the French Revolution and subsequent actions of Napoleon were the natural consequence of disrupting tradition and experimenting with democracy. The delegates believed stability in Europe could be achieved by reaching the following 4 goals. 1. Keep France in check. Napoleon, am I right? 2. Achieve a power balance in Europe. 3. Re-establish the legitimacy of governments. And 4. Prevent future revolutions in Europe. The Congress eventually reached an agreement centered around these 4 goals. So let's review. What was the Congress of Vienna and how did it plan to stabilize Europe? Now, let's learn more about these 4 goals of the Congress of Vienna. Goal number 1, keep France in check. How would this be done? The Congress agreed to strengthen the nations on France's borders. As a result, the following changes were made. First, the Kingdom of the Netherlands was formed by uniting the Austrian Netherlands and the Dutch Republic. Next, 39 German states joined to create the German Confederation, which was dominated by Austria. It was created as a replacement for the Holy Roman Empire, which had consisted of over 300 smaller kingdoms and had been dissolved in 1806 during the Napoleonic Wars. Finally, Switzerland was declared independent and the Kingdom of Sardinia added territory along France's southeast border. How did the Congress of Vienna address the goal of keeping France in check? Let's move on to goal number 2, achieve a power balance in Europe. The Congress wanted to prevent one country from dominating the continent. So even though France had instigated the Napoleonic Wars, the Congress didn't want to punish it to the point where it would seek revenge. Therefore, France was only reduced to its 1792 borders and was allowed to keep some of the territory it took during the early revolutionary period. Also, Metternich was concerned about the rapid expansion of Russia and believed that a still strong France would help keep Russia in check. How did the Congress of Vienna address the goal of achieving a power balance in Europe? Now to goal number 3, re-establish the legitimacy of governments. In the eyes of the representatives, modern enlightened regimes lacked legitimacy. They believed that promoting individual rights led to confusion over who actually held power and in the end resulted in chaos. The French Revolution, for instance, overthrew the monarchy, sparked international wars, was followed by several versions of a constitution and a reign of terror, and ended with the establishment of a dictatorship, not exactly what most people would call stable. In a hereditary monarchy, there was no confusion about who ruled. Additionally, it was believed that restoring monarchies would foster consistent political relations between nations. As a result, royal families in France, Spain, Italy, and Central Europe regained their thrones. The premise for legitimacy of these monarchies shifted from the age of absolutism, however. Instead of a king's power being derived from a divine right, these monarchies were formed by the common consent of the continental political powers. How did the Congress of Vienna address the goal of re-establishing the legitimacy of rule in Europe? Goal number 4 was to prevent future revolutions in Europe. The French Revolution had not only shaken France to its core, but resulted directly in a series of international wars and indirectly in the Napoleonic Wars. Members of the Congress wanted to prevent revolution at any cost, leading to the Concert of Europe, an agreement that nations would help each other if revolution broke out in any one of them. Some European nations took this to the next level by agreeing to strengthen state religions. Russia, Prussia, and Austria, still absolute monarchies, signed the Holy Alliance in 1815, an agreement to use Christian principles as the basis of their rule. Their goal was to foster devotion to the Church with the belief that this common stabilizing force would deter revolution. How did the Congress of Vienna address the goal of preventing revolutions? Agreement at the Congress of Vienna was a monumental achievement for Europe. It marked the first time that nations of an entire continent had diplomatically cooperated to such a great extent. Politically, the pendulum of Europe swung back to conservative values that lasted for the next few decades. Culturally, logic and reason inched back toward feeling and emotion, and there was a sense of nostalgia for the past. Political divisions within nations grew in importance and increasingly resulted in multi-party political systems. This was exemplified in France, as conservatives supported Louis XVIII and liberals wanted the king to share more power with the legislature. Meanwhile, nationalist movements, or movements that promote the political independence of a group with a shared cultural identity, formed in territories that were placed under foreign control. For example, German nationalists wanted to unite Germany into a nation-state based on popular sovereignty. Instead, they were absorbed into the Austria-dominated and monarchical German Confederation. Nationalist movements would later lead to further revolution and the creation of new nations, such as a unified Germany. And the agreement worked to prevent war, as peace on continental Europe remained for the next 40 years. A longer-term effect of Vienna was the pattern set for the cooperation between nations that would later expand into the 20th century League of Nations and United Nations. Let's review. What were the long-term results of the Congress of Vienna? Whether or not it's comfortable, Heraclitus was right. The world is always changing. The Congress of Vienna couldn't stop the ideals of the French Revolution from taking root elsewhere. Meanwhile, a new generation of revolutionaries were leading independence movements in Latin American countries, and that's where we're headed next because history is everywhere.